messing around in our little makeup studio here on a Saturday morning. It's not even noon yet, but, we've been messing with this Essence Flesh Colored Pencil. Smitha Deepak said, you can use a little flesh colored pencil as a very precise hot weather concealer that highlights, and just tap it out, and it really does seem like the truth. It's 80 degrees in Hollywood, and it's quite a surprise for winter. I think it'll be winter time, 50s and 60s next week, but you know, I'm not mad at this, right? The finish is a little bit different than concealer, and it does make me feel like on top of sunscreen and a kohl pencil that I should powder, but I kind of don't want to add that texture. I kind of want to hop right into this Cherry Coke palette from Morphe. So cute. Such great shade names like Sweet Crave, So Delish, Dessert First, Very Cherry, Fruity Fierce, Wild Bunch, Yum Yum, Gimme More, Glam Pop, Bing It On, like Bing Cherry, with a twist, all in Refresh, Sesh, Pretty Please, Lighthearted Satisfaction, Pit Happens, Sunday Fun Day. Cheerfully Cherry Artistry Palette. It's so cute, and I've been loving all of my recent experiments with Morphe palettes. Some of the palettes look like they're not for me. There's one that's called like Totally Taupe or Crazy Plum, and I don't know, but what I like about a palette like this is that you've got some neutrals and browns, and then you get into these beautiful like cherry colored deeps, right? And then some shimmers as well. So let's try to get an eye look going. You know, I did want to briefly talk about this, no surprise, dollar store brand we had gotten. It smells so good. Renewing Makeup Remover Balm, Micellar Water, Rose Water. Sounded so great. A brand called Bolero, right? I used it 2 days, smelled so good, smelled like roses, and then I was looking like the Crypt Keeper. And so I actually read the ingredients, one of which is, where is it? It is sodium hydroxide, which we will recognize as being the product basis for things like Nair. It is basically like lye, and you know, yeah, it'll remove your makeup, but it'll probably remove a little bit of your face and give you a texture that you will not appreciate. We're going to talk about these Milani Green Goddess products another day when we actually put them on our face, but our brushes are clean. We, you know, are just trying to knock some beauty look out, you know, in our newly organized space for doing our makeup. You know, just tap something onto the lid with a whatever kind of brush. You know, we've been using this dollar store, very flexible, fluffy brush just to, this palette is nice too because it has a mirror. Let's try to get something pale and neutral across the lid. Let's go for not the white one, although we could. Let's go, should we do it? It's Saturday. We might end up looking crazy, but who cares? Let's go for the palest one. Because if we don't try it now, we may never try it, right? And then just getting that tapped and swirled across the lid just to set, you know, whatever products. We did go in with sunscreen first. That might work fine if you weren't living in the desert. But in the desert, you don't see people, you know, who live in the Middle East scraping off the outer layer of their face. You see them covering it up and shielding themselves from the sun, right? Unless they have to be outside for like business purposes. Nobody's outside trying to, like, you know, destroy their skin in the sun. And if you want color on your skin, then you've got a whole lot of makeup and a lot of tanner. So there's been some beautiful tutorials about layering on tanner as a base and then tanner as kind of a temporary contouring on your face. I have yet to try it, but I have enjoyed wearing tanner and tantour even as body makeup on set. So this doesn't look terrible. It looks very pale in the palette. right? This shade, but we're just trying to see what it will give us in terms of setting the product underneath and creating a nice base for the incredible browns and cherry colors to come. I think even this by itself makes me look groomed and cute, so I'm not mad. So from here, should we get some kind of crease color on? Should we use the same brush? Should we go for something either pink or purple? Let's go for the pink and see if we can dance that across a slightly higher crease than is natural. Tap that across, and then we'll make very tiny circles, right? Extending it out toward the end of the eyebrow tail and kissing it back to the corner of the eye, right? This will be our base color, and then we'll go on and put a darker shade at the outer V of the lid itself, right? We want a wash color that suggests where the color story of this palette is going to take us today. You know, very pretty, very feminine, perhaps a Valentine's Day look. You know, Valentine's Day is coming. I hope that you know, if you don't have a sweetheart per se, you at least have, you know, people in your life that you think loving things about, whether that's romantic or not, people that you trust, people who've been good to you, all of that works. You know, you want to love yourself first and foremost, right? Take time, self-care, working out your beauty looks before Valentine's Day rolls around so you can feel confident that the eyeshadow look won't look insane or powdery, but will actually look like something worth your time and effort on your face, right? That's what's reassuring about the Morphe palettes I've been getting my hands on. You know, I've had a few palettes that they just didn't have enough darks in them, or they didn't have enough, you know, sort of variety of colors. I get nervous about an all gray or an all taupe or all plum palette because that just doesn't seem to have enough variation, right? But I think, you know, for the criticisms of Morphe, there really does seem to be a sophistication and a care to making products that are worth adding to your collection, if you so choose. I think one thing that's frustrating is you can't, for me, see all the shades before you actually get into the palette, right? It's kind of like you're expected to trust. So if this is our mid-toned, kind of rosy shade, kind of like a pale, not quite a plum, but just a pale kind of rosy shade. I think this has worked out quite nicely on my skin. And then for an outer corner, let's go with this slight. I'm not unhappy with this outer corner though. This is, you know, I feel like once you kind of like appreciate not only the tutorials that you watch, but also, you know, your own eye shape. What is it that you're trying to achieve? And all the swirls and all the techniques that work on the people who have a lot of lid space and have very, I don't know what the word is. You know, it's like if you have a hooded eye of any sort, then tutorials for people who don't have hooded eyes don't give you the greatest satisfaction. There's a lot of swirling, a lot of, you know, a lot of tending to real estate that we really don't have, right? We want that depth at the outer corner, right? We want it to sort of suggest architecture and strengthening what's there, but without closing off the eye and without, you know, people putting 3 and 4 colors in their in their, you know, eye shadow isn't very realistic for someone just using the same brush to blend out the edges of our outer V shade and lift that shape up toward the tail end of what? That eyebrow. You know, I certainly want to get more experimental, and if you know the group Native American Cake Faces on Facebook, you know, we kind of support each other in, you know, doing the kind of like normcore looks, but also in doing, maybe blending this out was a mistake. I don't know. I'm not loving it. I think it was fine before with that depth. And that's the thing, like some tutorials say stamp color at that outer V and leave it, right? We might have to put it back because we've certainly taken it down a little bit, right? But you always want to back up and look. Back up and look at what you've done. You're like your own painting. See if you can just restore depth to that outer V and really try to discipline yourself to not go past your natural crease, right? Because that is what will give you drama and architecture. Trust the process. So then take some sort of paddle brush. It almost doesn't matter which. And I do have higher end brushes that I have yet to really get into. And because it's daytime, let's try to play with this. We could go with the pink. Let's go with the pink because of Valentine's Day, right? We could also go with this gold or this kind of rust color. Maybe let's play with the gold, you know, a daytime look, right? Pink on rose might be, and so what we're doing is stamping the inner 2/3 of the eye with a shimmer. These aren't quite glitters, verging on glitter, but not that chunky. And just tapping that, looking down into our mirror, tapping that across our inner 2/3 of the eye. We're not taking time and adding a layer with cut crease. And, you know, to my mind, on a hooded eye, do you have the time and the will for a cut crease? That's very pretty. It's actually a lot more sheer than I would have guessed. And what we're doing is trying to create light in our inner 2/3 of our eye, which can tend to be a little closed off. When we open our eyes, we're closing a lot of our lid, and it's not like it's exposed like an unhooded eye. Not that there's anything bad about having a hooded eye, it's just a different eye than other people have. It's like being a person of color. You just look different than the looks that may be promoted in media, right? It's not even about numbers, certainly not anymore, but it's about promotion. It's like so ironic to me. You can watch television shows from Mexico and South America, and the characters that are portrayed as the main characters on most stories are not the most populous people in those countries, like Brazil, etc., right? Not that it's bad, but it certainly isn't a reflection, if you get what I'm saying, right? And that just means that there's more opportunity to kind of get that picture of, you know, who's living and loving and, you know, worthy of being discussed. It's not just, you know, people who don't have hooded eyes, let's put it like that. So just using the same brush because I'm lazy and I don't want to do a lot of brush washing if I don't have to. Just running that same brown color with whatever's left on the brush under the eye. Now remember, we had dusted this palest color under there, so it's not like this eyeshadow is getting underneath there on top of nothing, right? We have all kinds of product on our skin, primarily that sunscreen that made us look crazy. But then if we take a very, very thin, small brush, very small, and then just think about that inside third of our lower lash line, you know, that we could take a bright color, maybe even the same shimmer color. I almost feel like I want to take a shimmer from somewhere else, but I did not plan that. Let's see. We do have another palette. Our tutorial on this palette, Profusion Flawless, went south because, again, we're having cell phone problems. You know, I'm kind of hesitant to spend the money to get into a, you know, ordering the expensive phone. I want to. I just don't know if I should do that yet. This is just a very random palette that cost us $1 at Marshall's, using our tiny little brush and looking at something bright and shimmery. Ginger might fit the bill, which is this kind of like yellowy shade, kind of gold, but not exactly the same gold. And then just getting that right tight to that lash line on the inner third, right? Just thinking about where we might want to brighten up and liven up the eye. I don't know if we're getting all the color payoff. It certainly does look a little bit more yellow. But yeah, just experimenting with high end and low end and medium end palettes to see, you know, where do we find satisfaction? When it's date night, when we want it to be right, where do we go with our makeup and our palettes? Where do we kind of see ourselves at our best, right? At our best, at our most loved, at our most celebrated. What are the products that can bring us? This is the e.l.f. Putty Blush in Bora Bora, right? And the reason I like these silicone sponges is that it keeps your fingers clean. I mean, you can wipe off your fingers on your sponge. I did find my long lost giant green sponge, but I'm not somebody who loves to, you know, mess up a lot of things that then I have to clean. So we haven't put on foundation. We just did rub in some highlighting pencil, not concealer, but pencil, just to see how that looked. We used a flesh colored one from Rimmel and then a paler one from Essence. And I don't hate it, right? And this color seems to suggest that shade that is so popular with that Dior blush. And I do like cream blushes because they kind of live on the skin and they allow you to kind of like tap and fade them out so they don't look like a bar of color, but they look kind of luminous and like it's coming out of your actual flesh, like it's capillaries and blood that kind of came to the surface of your skin because you were exercising or making love, right? That's kind of what we're trying to suggest with our makeup, right? Some kind of state of being, a look, a mood, tapping that along the hairline. But most of all, as you see the definition between my face and the rest of my skin, you know, sunscreen, and I know that there are sunscreens for people of color, but the cheap commercially available ones, maybe put a little bit above the arch of the brows and use the flat side of the brush just to, not the brush, the silicone sponge, right? It's like a finger without bones, very squishy, to tap that in. But, you know, that bluish cast, that bluish white, even people who are not people of color have that bluish cast on their face. And I mean, I guess that's how it works, right? With zinc and non-chemical sunscreen. So that's looking rather pretty. You know, we're just looking to restore human color. We don't want to go crazy with a lot of product because we're going to head outside. We're going to get sweaty in the hot weather. We're going to do our errands and then we're going to come back and maybe mess with some different makeup looks. But I feel like from here we could add, and I was really happy with how this product, which unfortunately is discontinued, the Marc Jacobs Blacker eyeliner. I know it's black, but I wish I could get hold of this product in dark brown because it is so good, right? You just kiss it at your lash line, right? I don't have the greatest technique. It's such a forgiving pencil that doesn't need to be constantly sharpened. It comes out sharp. And even just halfway across that lash, it gives you that kind of weight and definition to kind of enhance the way you've darkened that outer corner, right? And just tucking this right underneath that, right? It just looks great, right? If you thicken up that line, and then try to move it over toward the inner corner without going all the way there. The trend for 2022 is not the upward flick. It's extending your lash line either straight out or straight down as if it is a lash, right? The gesture is not going up and pointing up, but it's almost like that 1960s twiggy liner that hugs the actual eye. So you get a tiny little flick, right? That looks like it could be part of the eye itself. Can you see? I'm looking at myself when I should look in the actual camera. Do you see what I'm saying? So let's do the other side. So, you know, yes, a brown would be great, but a black handled in a conservative way is also your friend because, you know, if your lashes are black or dark, dark brown, then black isn't real far off, right? It doesn't look absolutely nuts or like a try hard thing, but just a thin little line, thicken the lash line. You could tight line as well, right? Get your pencil underneath the lash line, right? Make it symmetrical on the other side. And what's great about this pencil is it doesn't wander around. You can be sweaty outside if you actually don't rub it, right? Right? So just on the same gesture, extending the upper lash line down just a little bit, right? Connecting it to the lower lash line, right? And you can either leave it or you can neaten it up with a pencil. Just giving you that kind of slightly sloping down gesture, that, like, you know, Britney Spears sort of puppy dog eye, right? And it's very cute. Maybe we can use our same brush that we used on our inner lower lash line highlighting shadow, just to rub and smudge that outer black line, right? Just to make it gradient, make it look a little bit more lived in, a little bit more native to our eye, right? So we look made up and pretty, like we know how to wear makeup, right? That is visual femininity in the West. That it's not like there's anything wrong with being masculine or masculine presenting. It's just that when we're attempting to look feminine and different than the masculine presentation, we're enhancing the eye, we're shrinking the face, we're really kind of doing some dainty adjustments that will create intrigue without being too harsh, right? Without being too much. And, you know, again, about the hooded eye, I think the lack of mainstream information about the hooded eye, and TikTok has been a great source, and certain experts from Sephora, for me, have been really, really tremendously helpful, because it's not to malign or kind of diss the hooded eye. It's just to respect its architecture, that your wing needs to come out, avoid the fold, and then go up or out or whatever direction you want to put it in. But even people who are not of color, and this word is a little bit dangerous, it's an exotic look. It's not everybody else's eye, it's this eye. And some of the most celebrated beauties and actresses, and, you know, even people who are blonde, even people who are more of African descent, can have this kind of eye, and it's a great eye. It's not the super most common eye, so I can understand it being a little bit more of a, you know, a challenge to find the right information on how to dress up this eye. But this is a worthwhile eye. It's a cool eye. You can put on your blush and look pretty. You can structure your shadow in a way that looks pretty and sophisticated, right? And you can take this look up to the next level. These e.l.f. what are they called again? Something glosses. Glossy Lip Stains is what they are. So here's one that's cinnamon. This one is mauve. That might be it. Spicy sienna might be too dark. And then I think that we have a coral cutie. Let's work with mauve. And we have a pink one, but I don't know where it is. As much as I try to be organized, things can go left. But in any case, we will take our mirror and look at our lips. It's day, so do we need a liner? We're gonna have to put on a mask. In Los Angeles County, we're still rocking with the mask. And then get this color on. Look how pretty. Sheer color, suggesting, you know, lip texture, right? Can lightly line your actual lips. This isn't for the overlining. We don't really need to do that, do we? I think you see very clearly where my lips are. But this gives a nice sheen. 2022 may in fact be about a more dry lip. But for the desert and for me, I like a moist feeling lip. I don't know anyone who likes their lips dry, either kind, if you get my meaning. But look at that. If I were out to brunch, driving down the street, hello officer, don't give me a ticket. You know, just a little something. And using these flesh colored pencils as concealers in this heat, took out the very darkest lines I have around my nose and around my eyes. The finish looks just fine. You know, it may have a little bit more pore action, but the creasing is non-existent. And I really do feel like the powder of the shadow set that pencil. You can see the definition between the blush and the eyeshadow, both angled up, right? And just a little black hugging that lash line and respecting the shape of our eye without some crazy line going this way or that way. You know, this is kind of heading toward the modernism of 2022. Really, if I wanted to be the most modern, I would have done a drier lip with either a dark brown or a dark brown liner and some sort of nude lipstick matte in the center, no gloss, or a dark brown liner with a red or coral lipstick matte, no gloss, right? So gloss apparently is supposed to be going away and being less trendy for 2022, but I do like this lip stain. It may wear down so that the gloss isn't so glossy, but I don't think, especially people who don't wear makeup or follow trends, I don't think anyone's gonna look at this face and say, oh wow, you have no idea how to use makeup. Thank you for rocking with me, because I wasn't always even this decent about it, right? But because of my job and because of, you know, life, right? You want to look right. You want to look intentional. You want to look the way that you want to look when you head out of the house. You know, it's one thing if you're, as one does in Hollywood, if you're just trying to like get down the street and survive without anyone thinking anything. And, you know, I again have been so surprised when people at the grocery store have been like, oh, I'd like to call you, or I like your hair. Like, this is a hot weather, me experimenting with fiber wax and pomade and styling clay and all these great products from the men's section, Old Spice, right? What's nice is you put it in, right? It respects the texture of your hair, and even at the back in the kitchen, it keeps the hair where you put it. There's not a women's product that isn't alcohol-based, that isn't some crunchy gel or some damaging alcohol-based hairspray that does this. And I think I'm a convert. But yeah, no, you just want to be intentional, and your time off is about giving you the room and the time to figure out what looks right, what looks like what you want, right? And think about, yeah, for next time. This is my second time in this palette. This is my first time in this palette, right? Going light, gradually working toward darker, especially if we're not out at night. There's no reason to go to the very darkest chocolatey shades. You know, that'll be there for us the next time we, you know, head into the makeup studio, the makeup atelier, and try to get busy, right? But, you know, we are always looking to improve. We're always looking to respect our skin tone, the health of our skin, right? The skin care in the desert, in the hot sun, but also respect our will to serve a look, to be as kind of attractive, handsome, comely, whatever word you like, pretty, cute, beautiful, whatever that is, right? And culturally, whatever that is, a liner, a lip, a blush, something pretty, maybe not so perceptible as makeup, right? I think the most obvious makeup part is the eyeshadow. Shimmer doesn't occur naturally, right? You might get a sheen, you know, something because of the oil on your skin, right? Adding a highlighter, these are all very eye-catching kinds of products, but they're not necessarily natural, right? So going from the clean look and the clean beauty with just eyeliner and mascara and blush and a healthy look to actually adding color, shimmer, you know, things that push it beyond natural, it's definitely a choice. And it does suggest femininity and self-care that, depending on your job or the circumstance, you may or may not want to do. But if you want to do it, I highly recommend this palette. I highly recommend experimenting with these flesh-colored pencils because I was actually really pleasantly surprised, right? Flesh-colored, slightly lighter than flesh color, and using them in tandem, just like you do a lighter and darker concealer, it doesn't look dramatic like those people who use a dark contour to outline their lips and draw all these blobs all over their face that then they beauty sponge bounce out of existence, right? If you really watch them, this dark line around the mouth, like it's Al Jolson or some old racist cartoon, doesn't stay there. And it's kind of like a gimmick, right? All that dripping foundation all over the face. Interesting, the payoff in the end is fine, but it feels like a lot of product being wasted to achieve, more than anything else, a gimmick. Argue with me, tell me I'm wrong. But in any case, this is today's beauty look. I'm not mad. Are you mad? Tell me what you think. I look forward to your comments. I'm gonna run along and do my other errands and then hopefully not melt outside, and I'll be back later. Thank you for rocking with me. House of Tanya, camera ready. Check out the Morphe Coca-Cola Cherry Coke palette if you have the chance. And I'll try to get into some Anastasia and Norvina palettes soon. My hope is to actually try every palette I have and then, you know, let go of things that I don't really love. There's a couple of LGBT centers near here where I like to actually drop off, you know, clothing and shoes and makeup and things that don't necessarily work for me, you know, just out of the spirit of, you know, I've definitely in various free areas, inside, outside, at work, you know, found things that were useful, had colleagues pass on, you know, even their slightly worn, you know, clothing and dress shirts. And that to me is just so special, so useful, and free 99 is a price that none of us can argue with. So I encourage you to use your time and your taste to, you know, achieve some things that you like, right? It's not about anyone else's taste and what they like. It's about you experimenting, learning to be comfortable and intentional with your expression of your aesthetic, right? So I will see you soon. Thanks for watching.